This presentation talks about drugs that are used for pain, for fever, and for acute and chronic inflammation, including autoimmune diseases. Pain, fever, and inflammation are common symptoms that are encountered in both acute and chronic conditions. These symptoms may arise from infections, injury, autoimmune diseases, and other medical problems. Therefore, managing these symptoms are very important because they may improve the patient's comfort and functioning. Many drugs have overlapping effects. For example, paracetamol or acetaminophen both exhibit analgesic and antipyretic property. Analgesics mean drugs that can relieve pain, or these are the pain relievers, and antipyretics, so those are drugs that are used for reducing the body temperature, specifically for fever. There are also drugs that exhibit anti-inflammatory properties. Uh, Therefore, addressing only inflammation, but as we all know, inflammation is characterized by 5 different signs, and one of those signs is pain, the presence of pain. So pain is a subjective feeling. Actually, this is one of the signs of inflammation, and it is classified into several types: nociceptive, neuropathic, or mixed or chronic pain. Nociceptive pain is the type of pain that we experience as a result of tissue damage, and neuropathic pain may result from other conditions or other diseases. Examples of nociceptive tissue pain are injury, local injury, and arthritis, while for neuropathic pain, the example we have is diabetic neuropathy or shingles. So shingles is a type of viral infection caused by the same agent of chickenpox. For mixed pains, this is exemplified by cancer, pain, and fibromyalgia. So the typical types of drugs that we use for nociceptive pain are NSAIDs or non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, and paracetamol, and also COX inhibitors in general, COX-2 inhibitors, and opioids or narcotic pain relievers. For neuropathic pain, we can utilize antidepressants, anticonvulsants, so which usually have an effect on the nervous system, and opioids. So for mixed and chronic pain, we can also utilize the same drugs that we have mentioned, plus other modalities. The first pain reliever is paracetamol. In other countries, this is more commonly known as acetaminophen. So it acts by inhibiting the production of prostaglandin, and it is used both as an analgesic and a pain reliever and a antipyretic, so that is to address fever. So it is safe, considered safe in pregnancy, and there is no risk for GI or bleeding. However, overdose of paracetamol may lead to hepatotoxicity or liver failure. So since the liver is affected, we have to monitor the certain liver function test, especially ALT and AST. So NSAIDs. NSAIDs are generally drugs that inhibit the COX enzymes or the cyclooxygenase enzymes, and this results in reduction in the production of prostaglandins. So that is very similar to paracetamol. So NSAIDs are generally used for inflammation, but they may also exhibit an analgesic or antipyretic property. So some examples of common NSAIDs are ibuprofen. So this is an over-the-counter drug that is used for mild pain or fever. Naproxen Okay, and naproxen is noted to provide longer duration of effect than diclofenac. Okay, so which is available in two salts, sodium and potassium salts, which is very potent, and this is usually used for arthritis, given either as a tablet, so per orum, or by injection. Then we have indomethacin, another strong anti-inflammatory drug, but they exhibit more side effects. Then we have ketorolac, an injectable anti-inflammatory drug that can be utilized only for a short-term period. Then celecoxib, which is a COX-2 selective type of uh, NSAID, and they exhibit lesser GI side effects. We have to remember that since NSAIDs and other pain relievers can cause irritation of the gastric mucosa, we have to take it with food. So there is also tendency for bleeding, okay, and it may also be toxic to the kidneys and have a cardiovascular risk. So therefore, we have to monitor a lot of things here, especially uh, kidney function tests like creatinine BUN and CBC to determine GI bleeding. So that will show lower hemoglobin level, or um, the RBC level may also be reduced. Next, narcotic pain relievers or opioid analgesics. So they are derivatives of opium. So they are utilized for medical purposes when the level of pain is already considered moderate to severe. So we can utilize opioid analgesics. So this is given typically for post-operative patients, so those who have undergone surgery for cancer and trauma-related pain. So for trauma-related pain, so that means for accident patients, okay, so something like that. So some examples of opioid analgesics include the following: morphine, fentanyl, tramadol, codeine, and oxycodone. You can see in this table that most of them will be given uh, by mouth, okay, so oral, and two of them may be given by IV. So the standard opioid for severe pain is morphine, and fentanyl is also another common uh, anti-pain medication. It is very potent and of rapid onset. However, there are many cases of uh, overdose, okay, or because of its narrow therapeutic level. Next is tramadol, a weak opioid. So this is a weak opioid, and this may be purchased even in local pharmacies. Codeine. So as we have mentioned of codeine before, so we said that this is a pain medication that is given in combination with cough syrups. So this is given alone to address mild pain, or sometimes it may be combined with paracetamol. Okay, so the last one is oxycodone for moderate to severe pain. These are examples of side effects of fentanyl. Okay, or well, more opioid analgesics generally, like respiratory depression. So there may be um, hypoventilation, sedation. So that is what I wanted to say earlier, sedation. Then constipation because of these defects, and dependence. So this is what we want to avoid: dependence. That is why these are regulated drugs or medications. So monitor the respiration rate and the level of pain. Liver and kidney function tests may also be performed, and note for signs of overdose. So these are the signs of fentanyl overdose especially. So slow or stop breathing, blue lips, and skin coloration. cold and clammy skin. So by clammy, so that means that the skin is sweaty. So there is cold sweat. Then markedly constricted pupils, stupor, so unresponsive, seizures, loss of consciousness, and even coma. Okay. Corticosteroids, we did not mention this earlier, but corticosteroids are also utilized for pain because they have anti-inflammatory properties. This is used for pain that is severe or autoimmune in origin. So some examples of steroid medications include prednisone, dexamethasone, hydrocortisone, and methylprednisolone, or even prednisolone alone. So they are given in a variety of ways. Prednisone is typically oral. Okay, dexamethasone may be given dermatologically or as ointment. So what else? Hydrocortisone is given IV or topical, and methylprednisolone may be given IV. So long-term use of corticosteroid is not really a good thing because it may result in immunosuppression, hypoglycemia, osteoporosis, and adrenal suppression. So we have also mentioned that there may be a development of Cushing-like syndrome in patients who are taking corticosteroids for a long time. So monitor some laboratory tests like CBC, glucose, electrolytes, and bone density for possible osteoporosis. So certain conditions like fever related to infection, so usually it's treated with paracetamol and ibuprofen. For osteoarthritis, we may also give paracetamol, NSAIDs, and corticosteroid injections. For rheumatoid arthritis, we usually give NSAIDs plus other drugs. And for post-surgical pain, we use opioids plus NSAIDs. And for gout, we can provide NSAIDs, colchicine, corticosteroids, and other. So maybe we can utilize, corticosteroids like prednisone. It can also be given for gout and allopurinol. So in this figure, you can see the difference between osteoarthritis and rheumatoid arthritis. So if you see those uh, rounded structures in the joints, especially in the hands or in the feet, so those are typical of osteoarthritis, which can also be seen in gout. So for rheumatoid arthritis, there is this so-called swan neck deformity that is observed in the fingers, okay, or even boutonniere deformity. So that is related to the thumb and ulnar deviation. So those are the skeletal deformities that we may see or observe in cases of uh, different types of arthritis. Chronic inflammation. So I actually combined two different chapters in this presentation since the first one is only very short. So chronic inflammation and autoimmune diseases are uh, taken up in this part of the presentation. So in case of chronic inflammation, okay, so inflammation is very persistent, so they remain for a very long time and may result in tissue damage. So some examples of chronic inflammatory conditions and autoimmune diseases are the following. So RA, you have seen already the appearance of the fingers for people who have chronic rheumatoid arthritis, systemic lupus erythematosus, and inflammatory bowel disease, psoriasis, and multiple sclerosis. So this is not really a very complete list of autoimmune diseases, but at least these are the most common. So therapy, okay, of these conditions focus on reducing immune activity, controlling the symptoms, and preventing organ damage. Since we cannot really uh, provide cure to these diseases, so we are only targeting the symptoms. So what are the drugs that can be utilized for chronic inflammatory conditions? So again, we have NSAIDs. We already know what are NSAIDs. Then we also have corticosteroids. Then additionally, we have DMARDs, or disease modifying drugs. So they slow down the disease progression by modulating the immune response. So examples are methotrexate and hydroxychloroquine. So this is like very similar to cancer drugs. So biologic agents can also be utilized. These are uh, man-made. These are man-made drugs. So utilizing the monoclonal antibody technology. So you can see in the name infliximab, adalimumab, rituximab. So those are monoclonal antibody biologic agents. So these are antibodies. Then we have immunosuppressants. So they can suppress the immune system, okay, like azathioprine, cyclosporine, and mycophenolate. So these are the drugs that are used for chronic inflammation. Let's talk about specific conditions. The first one is rheumatoid arthritis. One of the things that we observe in autoimmune diseases is that most of them, if not all of them, share something uh, in common, and that is the involvement of the joints. So there is a specific type of autoimmune disease which we call rheumatoid arthritis. So this is affecting primarily the joints. There is arthritis, there is pain, there is swelling, and there is deformity. The first line treatment for rheumatoid arthritis is the drug called methotrexate. We can also utilize hydroxychloroquine or sulfasalazine. Biological products like tumor necrosis factor alpha inhibitors and adalimumab, and etanercept. So those are the drugs, biologic drugs. Um, supportive medications may also be provided. For example, in case of inflammatory symptoms, we can provide corticosteroids. So again, sometimes you are targeting merely the symptoms of the condition. Always monitor some laboratory tests, for example, CBC, for possible, if there are abnormalities and liver enzymes. So this is implying that there may be damage to the liver. CRP, which is a very sensitive laboratory test for inflammation, is also used for inflammation. Then we have RF, which is a specific uh, protein that is observed in rheumatoid arthritis, and anti-CCP. So this is another specific laboratory chemical substance that we can detect for rheumatoid arthritis. Systemic lupus erythematosus. So we can see the different signs and symptoms or clinical features of someone with systemic lupus erythematosus. This includes serositis, that means inflammation of the pleura and the pericardium, so serous membrane. So the presence of oral ulcers, arthritis, which is characteristically symmetrical and non-erosive, unlike your RRA or in osteoarthritis. So photosensitivity, that is when we observe rash after exposure to sunlight. Then blood disorders like anemia and leukopenia. This is not something that is not very specific. Then renal, there may be nephritis. And letter A there stands for positive anti-nuclear antibody. The letter I, so this is a specific antibody called anti-dsDNA or anti-Smith antibody. So these are positive for systemic lupus erythematosus. Then for MD, we have neurological syndromes, seizures, symptoms like seizures and psychosis. So the antibodies are shown there, anti-nuclear antibodies, the screening test. Then specific tests include anti-dsDNA, double-stranded DNA, and anti-SNP antibody. Nephritis is classified into mild or moderate or diffuse or membranous or type 3. So we can utilize those drugs like hydroxychloroquine, steroids, or cyclophosphamide or MMF for different types of systemic lupus. So again, this is still part of the previous slides, systemic lupus. So people with this condition may experience fatigue, joint pain, rashes, kidney involvement, as we mentioned. The drugs that we have also mentioned in the previous slides include chloroquine, corticosteroids, immunosuppressants, examples azathioprine, cyclophosphamide, and belimumab as biological drug. So monitor the different antibodies, anti-nuclear antibodies, anti-dsDNA antibody, and complement level, CBC, creatinine, and urinalysis to determine the level of severity of the condition. Next is inflammatory bowel disease. So we have two types, Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis. So we can see the difference between the two. For Crohn's disease, the inflammatory areas are usually patchy or they are seen throughout the small and the large intestine. But for ulcerative colitis, this is typically continuous and uniform and found largely in the large intestine. Mild cases of inflammatory bowel disease are treated with mesalamine or 5-ASA and corticosteroids. For moderate to severe cases, we can utilize azathioprine, the same drug that we used earlier for SLE, methotrexate, which we use in rheumatoid arthritis, and biological agents like, so the monoclonal antibodies, in this case, it's infliximab. So supportive, we provide nutritional therapy for inflammatory. So we're just avoiding the food that can trigger inflammatory response. So we can utilize the following tests, CBC, to monitor any change in the condition of the cells in the blood. CRP and ESR, both are indicators of inflammation. And so we can also detect stool calprotectin, so that is specific for that disease, and liver enzymes, so indicating that there may be liver damage in case of the utilization of these drugs. Psoriasis. So this is a condition affecting primarily the skin. So there is thickened scaly plaques found in different areas of the body, and the kind of drug that we use include corticosteroids and vitamin D analogs. But there is also a possibility of treating this condition utilizing different types of light. Okay, so for systemic treatment, we use methotrexate and cyclosporine and biologic agents. So again, we have the monoclonal antibodies. So the difference between your typical monoclonal antibody drugs is that they don't end in UMAB. In this case, since they are ending in UMAB, that means, or LUMAB, so that means that they are derived from human source. So they target specific interleukins, for the treatment of this condition. So these are examples of areas in the body that get affected and the typical appearance of psoriasis. So scaly areas affecting the skin. So usually reddish or even silvery gray in color. Very dry. So they may affect different areas, the scalp, the legs, the arm, the body, yeah, so the fingers, the toes. So multiple sclerosis. You can see in the figure that the affected individual is typically a woman. Okay, so multiple sclerosis happens primarily in women more than in men. So what actually happens is that there is an antibody that leads to demyelinization of the myelin sheath or the sheath of Schwann. So this is in our neurons. So what happens? So there is weakness, body weakness. It affects the muscles, it affects our sensory organs, okay, it affects the spinal cord, our sense of vision, the brain, the mouth, okay, digestive system, and the urinary system. So this primarily affects the central nervous system, leading to neurological symptoms, as we have noted in the previous illustration. The drugs that we can utilize include interferon beta, glatiramer acetate, fingolimod, and natalizumab. So among the antibody drug. So to monitor this condition, okay, to diagnose and monitor the condition, of course, aside from the clinical signs and symptoms, we can do radiographic testing like MRI, magnetic resonance imaging, okay, testing for neurological functions, CBC, and liver enzymes for, okay, so usually liver enzymes are monitored for possible liver involvement. So corticosteroids are almost always used for the treatment of autoimmune diseases. Why? Because of the following reasons. Number one, they provide rapid symptoms, relief of symptoms, especially during flares of diseases. So they can target particularly the inflammatory response. So tapering is required because too much corticosteroid in the body can lead to adrenal crisis. So we have to provide lesser and lesser steroid to the individual. Then long-term side effects, the patient may experience osteoporosis, weight gain because of edema, and Cushing-Void features. We have noted the appearance of someone suffering from Cushing's disease. So there is central obesity, there is the presence of uh, moon phases, then uh, buffalo hump, okay, abdominal striae. So those are the typical appearance of someone with Cushing's disease. Monitor the glucose level because people with Cushing's disease will also suffer from secondary diabetes mellitus. And calcium bone density because of the effect of uh, corticosteroid on calcium and electrolyte level. So that is okay, because of elimination of some electrolytes in the urine. Biologic agents are usually given to target specific chemical substances in the body, like cytokines, so interleukins, beta in the B cells. So infliximab can target the tumor necrosis factor alpha. This is given in these conditions, RA, Crohn's, and psoriasis. Rituximab, so for CD20 on the B cells. Okay, ustekinumab, so that's for interleukin 12 and 23. And belimumab for B lymphocyte stimulation. So since we are medical technologists, we always have to consider the laboratory test. And we have already mentioned this several times. So anyway, CBC, so this is to detect the effect of these drugs on the bone marrow, so myelosuppression. Then liver function test because of possible involvement of the liver, damage to the liver. Okay, specifically for those who are using methotrexate and azathioprine. For renal functions, we have creatinine BUN. So this is especially true for patients suffering from systemic lupus erythematosus. And autoimmune markers like ANA, anti-dsDNA, okay, or even anti-Smith antibody. So that is for lupus, RF for RA for rheumatoid arthritis, CRP and ESR both are again anti-inflammatory. They are laboratory tests that can identify inflammation. But between these two, CRP is more sensitive compared to compared to CSR, okay, in terms of being used as a marker of inflammation. So meaning, if there is an improvement in the condition of the patient, we can easily see that because CRP can be performed quantitatively. So if there is a decrease in the level of CRP, that means that the inflammation is improving. So TB screening, we can also, because as we know, these people with autoimmune disorders may also experience a problem with the immune system. So there may be involvement of uh, you know possible involvement of infection. We can do PPD, uh, purified protein derivative in nuclear before biologics. So we have to give this before giving the biologics.